about secondary growth in the dicotyledonous stems. Okay, the secondary growth is lateral meristem or a secondary meristem, which is developed in the later period of the development of the plant. Okay, when you observe here, the secondary growth in a dicotyledonous stem occurs because of the presence of two cambium. One is a vascular cambium and the second one is a cork cambium. Okay, when you observe the vascular cambium is of again two types. One is a intravascular cambium and the second one is the intervascular cambium. Okay, that is the cambium which is present in between the xylem and phloem of the vascular bundle. We are calling it as a intravascular cambium. Okay, and the cambium. Okay, and the cambium. Okay, that is developed from the medullary. Okay, from the parenchyma cells of a medullary rays adjoining the intravascular cambium. Okay, we are calling it as an intervascular cambium. And this intervascular cambium will grow in the opposite direction of the adjacent vascular bundles and joins with the intravascular cambium finally and forms a ring-like structure called cambial ring. Okay, and this cambial ring, okay, grows in two layers and forms new cells on both the sides. Okay, the cells that are formed towards the inner side, okay, will form the secondary xylem, that is towards the pith. Okay, the newly formed cells which are cut off towards the inner side, okay, will form the secondary, whereas the newly formed cells that are cut off, okay, towards the outer side or towards the pericycle, okay, will form the secondary phloem. But as the cells that are cut off towards the inner side are more active, it results in the formation of more amount of secondary xylem. Okay, due to the production of more amount of secondary xylem, okay, it crushes all the tissues that are present within the plant body. That means it will crushes the pith, it will crushes the medullary rays, the tissue of medullary rays, pericycle, endodermis, primary phloem, cortex, hypodermis, everything they are crushed. Only the some amount of primary xylem and secondary xylem and secondary phloem, small patch of secondary phloem. And in between, radially arranged parenchyma cells are present, which represents the secondary medullary rays. Okay, so as a result, as a result of cambial ring, activity of the cambial ring, what happens? It results in the formation of a secondary xylem and a secondary phloem. But as the more secondary xylem, it crushes all the tissues and only the secondary xylem and the secondary phloem and a small amount of primary xylem is left. So, okay, due to the development of this large secondary xylem and crushing the tissues, so there is a need for the development of some protective tissue outer to this. So for the production of this protective tissue, okay, some of the cortical cells, okay, some of the parenchyma cells that are present in the cortex or cortical cells will undergo dedifferentiation and forms the cork cambium or phallogen. Okay, this phallogen also divides and forms two layers of cells. And these layers, okay, these cell layers will undergo division and forms new cells. The cells which are cut off towards the outer side will form the phellum or a cork. Phellum or a cork. And the cells that are cut off towards the inner side, this cork cambium or phallogen will form the phalloderm. Okay, this is phellum, phallogen, and phalloderm. All together, we are calling it as periderm. All together, we are calling it as periderm. So, in this regard, we need to understand the term bark. Bark is a non-technical term used to refer all the tissues that are present outer to the cambial ring or a cambial ring. There is a secondary phloem and periderm, which represents phalloderm, phellum, and phallogen. All these four layers together, we are calling it as bark. Okay. And next, when you observe the cells that are lining, okay, present in the cork or phellum are deposited with the suberin, which makes the cells impervious to water and gases. As a result, okay, this layer becomes dead and does not allow the air or water to enter into. So, but inner to this cork will find a lot of living cells. So, to provide oxygen, okay, to these living cells, what happens at some places? Okay, the cork cambium is cut off, and the cork is cut off, and the parenchymatous cells are exposed, forming a lens-shaped opening. And this lens-shaped opening, okay, we are calling it as a lenticel. Okay, these lenticels are present in the old trees. Okay, to provide oxygen to the living tissues that are present in the in the tree or in the old trees. Okay, because the outer layer, which is we are calling it as a cork, became okay dead and impervious to water and gases due to the deposition of suberin. Okay. Okay, and next on the last day, okay, that is before, I asked one question. Till now, no one has answered. What is the question that I asked? Okay. Can anyone say what is the question that I asked and answer for that question? No response from anyone? Okay, in the endodermis of the roots, the cells of the endodermis in the roots is deposited with the suberin, which makes the cells impervious to water. Then how the water enters into the inner layers? That is the question that I asked.
Might be by osmosis, sir.
It is impervious to water, ma. The water cannot enter, cannot pass through
Okay,
the cell wall, no. Then how the water will enter by osmosis. It is completely deposited with the suberin. Okay, the cell wall is completely deposited with the suberin, so it is making impervious to water. Then how the water? Okay, when you observe here, okay, there are some cells that are present in the endodermis. There are some cells in the endodermis in the roots which are devoid of suberin. Okay, these cells are usually present adjacent to the protoxylem. Okay, these cells are present adjacent to the protoxylem and the endodermis. Okay, that means where endodermis, where this xylem tissue is present, adjacent to that in the endodermis, we'll find some specialized cells which do not possess this suberin. These cells we call it as passage cells. Only through these passage cells only the water can enter into the inner layers. This is all to reduce the pressure exerted due to the entry of water into the inner parts of the plant body. We all know very well, okay, how the water and mineral salts are from the roots to the upper parts of the plant body means through xylem, only through xylem. So if all the water enters into the inner parts of the plant body throughout the endodermis, that means a huge amount of water will enter, and that pressure cannot be buried by this xylem. So to reduce the pressure exerted by the water that is entering into the inner layers, so to reduce that pressure, what happens? Okay, the endodermis is lined by suberin, but some of the cells in between the endodermis, they are devoid of suberin. That means they do not have deposited with the suberin in their cell walls. They are normal parenchymatous cells with the cellulose, so that they will allow the water to enter into the inner parts. Okay, and finally they reach the xylem. Okay, such cells we call it as a passage cells. Okay, at present, okay, in old NCERT textbook it is mentioned, but now it was not mentioned here. Okay, again when we come across with the transport in plants, at that we'll discuss about this concept, how the water is entered into the inner parts of the plant body. At that time during the transport, okay, we'll discuss about this concept. Okay, so that is so some passage cells are present in the endodermis which will allow the water to enter into the inner parts of the plant body. These passage cells are usually present adjacent to the xylem or okay, protoxylem. Okay, and allow the water to enter into the xylem from cortex into the xylem through passage cells of the endodermis. Okay, that is what we can see here. Okay, when you observe here, okay, so and next, okay, we have discussed about the spring wood and the autumn wood, heartwood and sapwood. Okay, that is Okay, and next, coming to the secondary growth in roots. Okay, coming to the secondary growth in roots. Okay, like how the secondary growth is taking place in a dicotyledonous stem. In the similar manner, we can observe the secondary in case of dicotyledonous roots also. Okay, in dicotyledonous roots also, we can observe the secondary growth, which helps in the increasing the girth of the root in dicotyledonous plants. How this secondary growth in roots will occur means in the dicot root, and okay, now, okay, you have to remember that in monocot roots also we don't find the secondary growth. Only in dicotyledonous roots only we'll find the secondary growth. Okay, in the dicotyledonous root, the vascular cambium is a completely secondary in origin. Okay, when you observe in case of dicotyledonous stem, we are observing some cambium which is developed from the primary meristem. Okay, from primary meristem we'll observe the intravascular cambium, but the intervascular cambium is developed from secondary meristem. So that means the secondary in case of dicotyledonous stems will occur by the combination of primary meristem as well as secondary meristem. Both together are helping in the formation of secondary tissues and thereby secondary growth. But when you observe the dicotyledonous root, in dicotyledonous root, the secondary growth occurs, okay, only by the secondary meristem or secondary in origin, the prime, okay, the vascular cambium. So it originates from the tissue located just below the phloem bundles, a portion of pericycle tissue above the protoxylem, forming a complete and continuous wavy ring, which later becomes circular. So when you observe the dicotyledonous stem, sorry, when you observe the dicotyledonous root, okay, this is the dicotyledonous root. When you observe here, okay, this is endodermis. Okay, we can see here. Okay, this is the xylem, and this, okay, in this region we'll find the passage cells. Okay, through which the water will enter into the inner parts and enters into the xylem. Okay, the protoxylem. Okay, roots will find exarch xylem, no, protoxylem towards the outer side and metaxylem towards the inner side. So adjacent to the protoxylem, okay, the endodermis consists of passage cells. Okay, and through these passage cells, the water will enter into the protoxylem, and from there it is transported to the higher parts of the plant body. And now below the endodermis, we'll find a few layers of pericycle. So we already said the the pericycle is made up of few layers of parenchymatous cells, and these parenchymatous cells which are present adjacent to the protoxylem and the pericycle adjacent to the phloem, okay, will undergoes a de-differentiation and transforms into vascular system. Okay, in all the okay, in all the regions, it will appear, okay, it will develop in the same manner. Wherever the protoxylem is present, okay, the pericycle, okay, some of the cells of the pericycle will undergo de-differentiation and transforms into vascular cambium. So this tissue will form in this direction and this tissue will form in this direction in the same manner. So okay, and okay, it will grow in a wavy manner, and finally all they join at one place and forms a ring like structure called a cambial ring. Later transforms into a ring like structure called a cambial ring, and from there onwards the same. Okay, this cambial ring will show the similar activity. That means it will form, okay, towards the inner side it will form secondary xylem, towards the outer side secondary phloem. Okay, okay, there is so it originates from the tissue located just below the phloem bundles, a portion of pericycle tissue above the protoxylem, forming a complete. That means at the junction of phloem, pericycle, and the protoxylem. Okay, some of the tissue that is present in a pericycle will undergo dedifferentiation and transforms into vascular cambium or secondary meristem. Okay. Okay, and it okay usually it forms a forming a complete and continuous wavy ring, which later becomes circular. Okay, further events are similar to those already described above for a dicotyledonous stem. That means the remaining is the same. That is, okay, it will okay it will form in two layers. The cell, okay, okay, the cells that are cut off towards the inner side will form the secondary xylem, and the cells that are cut off towards the outer side will form the secondary phloem. Okay, as the cells that are formed towards the inner side are more active, more amount of secondary xylem when compared to secondary phloem. That is what we can see. Okay, secondary growth also occurs in the stems and the roots of gymnosperms. However, secondary growth does not occur in monocotyledons because the gymnosperms, all the gymnosperms are showing a taproot system. That is what you have to remember. All the gymnosperms will show taproot system. We don't find fibrous roots in case of gymnosperms. Okay, the fibrous root system is observed in monocotyledons. Okay, so when you observe the secondary growth not only occurs in dicotyledonous stems, okay, and the roots, dicotyledonous stems and roots, it is also observed in the gymnosperms, in the roots and stems of also. But secondary growth is usually absent in monocotyledonous plants, whether it is a root or stem. Okay, that is about the secondary growth in case of roots. Anybody is having any doubt regarding the secondary growth? Anybody is having any doubt regarding this anatomy of flowering plants? Okay. And next, when you observe here, structural organization in animals. Okay, in this chapter, some portion was deleted. That is, okay, we'll discuss about animal tissues. That means all the animal tissues. Okay, epithelial tissue, connective tissue, okay, muscular tissue, and next nervous tissue. Okay, already you might have studied in your lower class, but here we'll discuss a little bit brief about these tissues. And next, after that, we have got anatomy and functions of different systems. Okay, in the textbook, we'll have earthworm, cockroach, and frog. But earthworm and frog were deleted from the portion, and they were also deleted for a neat examination also. Okay, for a neat purpose also, this is not there. Okay, this in the neat syllabus also it was deleted. Okay, this earthworm and frog. So we'll discuss only about cockroach. Okay, the type study of cockroach. That means all the systems related to cockroach we'll discuss. Okay, that is what here. Anatomy and functions of different systems. Digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, nervous system, and a reproductive system of an insect cockroach. A brief account only. Why? Because, okay, in the syllabus, we'll discuss about the systems of one invertebrate organism and one organism, or one chordate organism and one non-chordate organism. One non-chordate organism is a cockroach, and the chordate organism is a human. Okay, the last unit, human physiology is there, no? At that we discuss about all these systems. So that's why, okay, they have been reduced, the earthworm and a frog. So one non-chordate and one chordate organism they have placed in the syllabus. So understood all of you. So and this okay, the earthworm and a frog were deleted from the portion for NCERT as well as for a NEET examination for both the concepts. Okay. So coming, okay, so when you observe this structural organization in animals, okay, we'll have different sub concepts like animal tissues, organ and organ system, because in case of higher animals we'll find organs and organ system level of organization. Okay, in the syllabus we'll have, okay, that is in this chapter we'll have earthworm, cockroach and frogs organ and organ systems, but the earthworm and a frog were deleted from the portion. Only the cockroach discuss. Okay, so coming to the topic, structural organization in animals. Already we have discussed about structural organization in plants under two chapters. One is the morphology of flowering plants and the second one is the anatomy of flowering plants. Okay, but the structural organization related to animals were discussed under only one chapter, the different tissues and organ systems, because we have got one chordate, okay, one lower organism and one higher organism. Higher organism we are discussing under one chapter, one unit, and in +2 also we'll discuss some concepts related to this organ and organ systems. Okay, so in this chapter what we'll do, okay, in the preceding chapters you come across variety of organisms, both unicellular and multicellular of the animal kingdom. Okay, we have discussed about the animal kingdom, okay, and we have discussed about okay, this protozoa, which are unicellular animals, and we have discussed about, okay, in the animal kingdom the multicellular animals. So in unicellular organisms, all functions like digestion, respiration, and reproduction are performed by a single cell. Okay, even though if you take a unicellular organism, whatever the functions that are carried out by a multicellular organism, or whatever the physiological activities that are performed by a multicellular organism at the organ and organ system level, the same physiological functions we will observe at a unicellular level also. They undergo go, okay, excretion, they undergo respiration, they undergo transportation within the cell between different cell organelles. They undergo reproduction. Okay, they bring about coordination between the different cell organelles. Okay, but the organization is simple. But when it comes to higher organisms, it is more complex. The complexity increased from lower organisms to higher organisms, but the efficiency was increased. So that is so in the complex body of multicellular organism, the same basic functions are carried out by different groups of cells in a well organized manner in the form of organs and organ systems. So that means whatever the functions that are carried out in a unicellular organism by a single cell, the same physiological functions we can observe in the higher multicellular organisms. So the basic functions remains the same, but carried out by different types of cells in a well organized manner in the form of tissues, okay, organs and organ systems. Okay, when you observe here, the body of a simple organism like Hydra is made of different types of cells, and the number of cells in each type can be in thousands. Okay, when you observe the organisms with a simple organization like simple organisms, okay, organisms with a simple organization like Hydra, okay, the function is carried out by a group of cells which are made up of some thousands of cells. But when it comes to complex organisms like human, the human body is composed of billions of cells to perform various functions. Okay, that means each function is carried out by some billions of cells. How do these cells in the body work together? That means how the coordination is brought, coordination and integration is brought between these cells to function as a unit. How it is happening? So in multicellular animals, a group of similar cells along with the intercellular substances perform a specific function. Such an organization is called tissue. So a group of cells which are a group of cells which are similar in structure, in origin, structure and function, we are calling it as a tissue, which are observed in animals. Okay. And next, you may be surprised to know that all complex animals consist of only 4 basic types of tissues. Okay, even though they are performing different functions, different cells, different functions, different organs, different organ systems and different functions we are observing. But when you observe all these cells, okay, they are basically grouped into 4 types of tissues. 4 basic types of tissues are observed in all the animals. These tissues are organized in portion and pattern to form an organism. Okay, to form an organ like stomach, lung, heart, and kidney. Okay, that means the basic types of tissues are only 4 types. Okay, in case of plants, we'll find the basic types of tissues are also 4 types: meristematic tissue. Okay, next parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Okay, these are only organized into different ways, different structures, and to perform different functions. In the same manner, in case of animals also, we are observing basically 4 types of tissues. And these tissues only present in different forms, in different parts of the body, like stomach, lung, heart, and kidney, to perform different functions. When 2 or more organs perform a common function by their physical or chemical interaction, they together form organ system. So different cells, okay, sometimes different types of cells may group to perform one function, that is also a tissue. And different tissues which are having a common function may group to form an organ. And different organs can group to perform a common function, that is considered as an organ system. Different organ, for example, if you take a digestive system, the digestive system consists of mouth, oral cavity, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and anus. And different types of digestive glands like salivary glands, liver, pancreas. Okay, that is these are all different organs, but they are all having one function, that is digestion. That's why all these organs together we are calling it as a organ system, and that we are calling as a digestive system. And even if you take the stomach is an organ, but it is formed of different tissues. Okay, it is having a mucus layer, it is having muscle layer, okay, muscle tissue, okay, it is having a mucosal tissue, okay, serosa, muscularis, okay, like this, submucosa, like this, different layers which are made up of different types of tissues. but functioning as unit. That's why we are calling it as organ. So that's how like that the organization is became okay more complex. Even if you take the circulatory system, the circulatory system consists of a heart, arteries, veins, capillaries, okay, large vein, okay, large arteries, small arteries, and next okay, and next capillaries, like that veins, okay, that is large veins, small veins, and venlets, and capillaries. Okay, when all these are along with the heart, then only the circulatory system can function as a unit. So the circulate, okay, it is also a system, organ system, like that. Okay, the excretory system, reproductive system, nervous system. So the different cells group to form a, okay, form a tissue, and different tissues group to form an organ, and different organs, okay, which are similar in function group to form an organ system. That is what we can, okay, that means okay, in case of plants the organization is up to the organ level, but in case of animals it was further extended up to the organ system level. Okay, that is when two or more organs perform a common function, physical or chemical interaction, they okay, they together form organ system. Example, digestive system, respiratory system, circulatory system, excretory system, okay, nervous system, reproductive system, like that. Okay, that is, we can see here cells group to form tissues, tissues group to form organs, and organs group to form organs, okay, systems. Why this has been grouped means to split up the work in a way that exhibits a division of labor and contribute to the survival of the body as a whole. Why this organization is observed in the organisms means this is to split up the work. In unicellular organisms, all the functions are carried out by single cell. Okay, in multicellular with a simple organization, okay, different cells function different functions. Some are okay, digestion, some are protection, some will cover the body, some are in excretion, some are in some cells use, okay, involved in reproduction, like that the division of labor is observed at cellular level, later tissues, next organs, and finally organ systems have been developed. So this is all, okay, this complex organization was developed, okay, to split up the work and to increase the efficiency of the organism for its survival. And already we said in animals, the tissues are basically divided into four basic types. Okay, that is what we can see. The structure of the cells vary according to their function. Already, okay, in your lower class, you might have come across this one, this concept. Okay, different cells are having different shape, structure based upon their function. For example, if we take RBC, what is the shape of RBC? What is the shape of RBC? the shape of the RBC is round because the RBC has to move along with the blood to different parts of the body, okay, to transport respiratory gases. Okay, if they are as they are round, that's why they are easily passed through the blood and it transfers to different parts of the body. If they are elongated, okay, if they are elongated, thread-like, they can't move along with the blood to different parts of the body, like nerve cells. Okay, when you observe the nerve cells, okay, the nerve cells are elongated. They need to transmit the nerve impulse from one part of the plant body to the another part of the body without being moved. Here, the nerve cells will not move from one place to another place, but the impulse is transmitted from one place to another place through the nerves or through the nerve cells. That's why they need to be elongated because they will not move. They are fixed. But they need to transmit the information from one part of the body to the another part. That's why they are elongated. Okay, so based upon the function, the shape and structure of the cells will vary. So therefore, the tissues are different and are broadly classified into 4 types. Okay, there are okay, based upon their structure, shape, structure, and function. Okay, the tissues in animals are basically divided into 4 types. They are epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and neural tissue or nervous tissue. So epithelial tissue, connective tissue, muscular tissue, and nervous tissue are the 4 types of tissues that we observe in case of animals. Okay, first we'll go with the epithelial tissue. Epithelial tissue. Okay, we commonly refer to an epithelial tissue as epithelium. Epi means upon. Okay, epithelium means a tissue. That means the tissue which is present upon. That means okay, this is the tissue which is usually present on the free surfaces of the different parts of the body. Okay, free surfaces. It okay, it present as the tissue on the free surfaces of the body. That's why it was named as epithelial tissue or epithelium. You can call it as epithelium. Okay, singular epithelium, plural, that is epithelia. Okay, that is, we can see here, this tissue has a free surface. That means one surface is attached to the okay, any organ or any tissue, and the other surface will be free. Wherever you see, it is the same. That's why we are calling it as epithelium. So this tissue has a free surface which faces either a body fluid or the outside environment and thus provides a covering or lining for some part of the body. So it is having a free surface. Okay. For example, the digestive system. Okay, the digestive system, the blood vessels, the urinogenital ducts, okay, mouth, okay, and next these are the tubular structures in which inside some fluid will be moving. Okay, if we take blood vessels, the blood will move. In urinogenital ducts, okay, the urine or the genital fluids will pass. Okay, in the digestive system, the food will move. In the respiratory system, okay, the mucus and the air will be passing on. Okay, and they are also present on the skin. The epithelium, okay, the tissue that is covering the body, that is the skin, is made up of epithelium only. It is present side, or it is present on the inner side, which is which it possesses the fluids to be fluids are flowing. So this tissue will usually covers the parts, different parts of the body. Okay, either faces either a body fluid or outside environment. Okay, providing covering or lining for some part of the body. Okay, and next, when you observe the epithelial tissues, the cells are compactly packed with little intercellular matrix. Okay, the space between the adjacent cells, in case of animal tissue, we are calling it as a matrix. Okay, the intercellular space between the adjacent cells, in case of animal tissues, we call it as matrix or intercellular matrix. So when you observe this epithelial tissues, okay, the epithelial tissues are very compactly arranged with no intercellular space or very little intercellular space, which we are calling it as matrix. Okay, and next, there are two types of epithelial tissues, namely simple epithelium and compound epithelium. Okay, when you observe the epithelial tissues are of again divided into two types: epithelial tissue, and the second one is a compound epithelial tissue. Okay, and we'll discuss about those tissues in the next class.